Hello, this is Jeff from Studio 41 Gaming, and I am here today to talk about my next god that I'm taking a look at, and that is Hades, King of the Underworld. So, we're going to first go over our items here, and first we see we've got Shoes of the Magi, magical power, penetration, speed, all that good stuff. I should point out, this is a damage Hades build. Hades can either really roll as damage or tank guardian, and this is a damage build, so let's get that out of the way real quick. If you're looking for tank Hades, look somewhere else. But we got Shoes of the Magi, and then we've got Warlock Sash, so got some stacks building here, gives a lot of health, a lot of mana, and gives a lot of magical power and health per stack, so that's really nice for keeping Hades alive, and he'll have a lot of health by the end game. Next we've got Ethereal Staff, which is really nice also because it combos with Warlock Sash. Gives some magical power, health, mana, and then 2.5% of your maximum health is converted to magical power. As we see down here, at end game we've got a lot of health, so that's going to be a decent bit converted to magical power. Next we've got Obsidian Shard, magical power, and then a good bit of magical penetration. Next we've got Rod of Tahuti, a lot of magical power, mana per second, and increase your magical power by even more. So Hades is hitting hard. And then last, and it's very hard to get, but if you can get it, God help the other team, it's Spear of Desolation. Gives a lot of magical power, a lot of penetration, and if you kill an enemy god, all of your cooldowns are reduced by 8 seconds. Yeah, it's probably the best magical item in the game, but as we see, it costs a ton, even more than Rod. So it can be pretty hard to get, but if you get it, it's even more insane than usual because you can already lay down a ton of damage with these 5 items alone. And then we've got Purification and Sanctuary for our relics. Pretty standard there. For God Builder, I pretty much leave him as is. It's fine. You'll see why here in a minute. Hades' passive is Blight, which is a debuff. Basically, it gives all of his abilities an additional power if they hit an enemy that's afflicted by Blight. His first ability is Death from Below. He just goes down, leaps up. If they're blighted, they're hit by, or they're slowed if they're blighted, and that also applies blight. So pay attention because this can be a little confusing. Next, we've got Shroud of Darkness, which silences all enemies in a cone in front of him. If the enemy is blighted, they are also feared, and that also applies blight. Devour Souls. Basically, it's an area. It's an AoE that hits around him in a circle. If the enemy's blighted, they explode, dealing additional damage to nearby enemies and healing your allies. Enemy gods, though, don't take that much damage from the detonating blights, and this consumes blight. It does not apply it, it consumes it. And then Pillars of Agony is Hades' ult. Basically, he pulls all the people around him in and does damage to him every half a second for 4 seconds. If the enemy is blighted, they have their protections reduced. Hades also gains protections while it's going on, so he can take a little bit more damage. But that's pretty much standard Hades. We'll get into the gameplay here in a moment. So basically for Hades, if you want to make a good comparison to how to play him, the best comparison would be to Odin, actually, in that he has basically the rotation of Doom. You're not going to mix and match a whole lot. It's just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But less of the 4 than Odin, because Hades' ult, in terms of playing him in this style as a DPS character, you're going to want to use it on a lot of, like, if other teammates are in the middle of a fight and they're getting wrecked, or the other team preferably is getting wrecked, Basically, you want to dive in, silence, and then hit your ult. And whoever you don't kill or your team doesn't kill, you can easily kill by mopping them up with your 3 attack. And that's basically how you're going to get a lot of your kills, is with your 3. Because it hits hard when you've got Warlock, Sash built up all the way. More on that in a few. And once you've got Rod of Tahuti, it just wastes enemies. It hits tanks for a good 200 to 300, and it will hit mages for like 4 or 5, maybe even 600 plus. It will hurt. So basically that's the big way you're going to get kills. Warlock, Sash can be a bit of a pain to build up by killing minions. You gotta just basically hit them with your 3 ability and maybe blight them first, because it can be a little bit rough early going with minions since you don't have your damage built up like another mage like Cuckoo or Janus or what have you can easily mop up minions pretty quickly, but Hades by default doesn't have a ton of offensive power, so you've kind of got to work for minions a bit. But if you build up Warlock Sash, you can take some real punishment as Hades. Do not shy away from diving in and freaking silencing and hitting your 3 ability on some enemies and then running off real quick. Just because you can take some punishment. Hades by default has decent defense, so he can take a couple hits, and we're building a lot of health, so he can definitely withstand some punishment that your average mage can't stand up to at all. But that's basically how you're going to play Hades. It's basically dive in, silence, Soul Reaper. No, that's Thanatos. I haven't gotten too used to his ability names yet, but basically use your 3 ability to hit all the enemies around you. Use your ult on weaker enemies, or to maybe save one of your teammates, or turn the tide of a fight. And you can rack up some crazy damage. And if you're lucky, you can have a pretty big game with your attacks. And if Hades gets fed early game, gets that Warlock Sash up a good bit, he's basically already won. So thanks for watching, and thank you for 100 subs. It took us a bit longer to get here than I thought we would, but thanks for anybody who's subbed. We really appreciate it. And we'll have a little something new that will celebrate our 100 subs.